the Showgirl Connection. I'm your host, Luann Chesick. I will be introducing you to all the dancers and singers and musicians and magicians and costume designers and choreographers and everybody, even behind the scenes, that made those big stage show spectaculars what they were. You know, they dominated the Strip for 5 decades, and then they launched Vegas and put them on the map of being the entertainment capital of the world. And I want to thank the man behind the camera, JP, an owner of WWDBTV, and that invited me to host the show. Thank you. And a special thanks to Stephen Murray. Stephen Murray has the gift of giving, and he invited the Showgirl Legacy Foundation onto his show, which I am the founder and president of. And our vision is to preserve the historic significance of the showgirl as a performing artist, and we do this through educational videos in the schools. We have traveling costume exhibits with authentic pieces of art, and we also have a showgirl art competition. And so Stephen Murray was my connection to John. So I also want to thank Cindy Domaney, who introduced me to Tom Michel, who was the producer last year of the Stephen Sondheim Follies. And he was my link to Stephen because he came on to his show. In fact, I met Cindy Domaney in 2006 when she came to the cast and crew reunion at the Stardust Hotel. Right. And I was the producer of that, and we brought 650 entertainers back together again.
Absolutely.
To celebrate those 5 decades of entertainment at the Stardust Hotel.
I was there.
Wasn't that great?
It was amazing.
It was fabulous, and it had the Lido de Paris was in the showroom.
Oh yeah.
And Enter the Night. Absolutely. And it was the Wayne Newton Showroom Theater.
That's right.
And then they imploded the hotel a month later. Oh. And it really hit us hard that those shows were becoming history and that we were becoming part of that history. Right? So got to thank Cindy for that whole connection. And then, finally, I wanted to thank Carrie Byers. You know, Carrie Byers is the producer of Burlesque Q.
Okay.
That's a show downtown. And then she also has Premier Showgirls.
Nice.
And John originally went to Carrie and said, hey, would love to have you host a showgirl show. And she said, I would love to, but I'm just so busy with my projects, I can't do it. Carrie was in the Folies Bergère, and I'm planning to get her on as a guest.
Oh, yes.
So I have to thank Carrie for being too busy. So, okay, so let's welcome Diane Christiansen onto the show. I am elevating myself by saying that we are creative soulmates. She is a dancer, and you would have known her as Diane Man back in the day. She danced in both the Lido de Paris in Las Vegas and
Paris.
She was also in C'est Magnifique in Puerto Rico, and she was the principal dancer in Le Clique, which was a group of disco shows featuring the fantasy players. She is an actor and teacher, voted the #1 acting teacher in Hollywood, has had a studio in Los Angeles for 33 years, and she's also an author and publisher of...
I'm not the publisher.
Oh, sorry, you're the author.
I'm the published author.
She's also the author and writer and published writer. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah,
not publisher, published writer of a book called The Last Real Showgirl, not to be confused with The Last Showgirl that is now in theaters for you to see. But Diane, really, tell me a little bit about why did you pick the name of the book as The Last Real Showgirl?
Well, thank you for that lovely introduction, first of all.
You're very welcome.
And yes, the title of the book coincides accidentally with the title of the new movie, The Last Showgirl, not to be confused. I actually titled this book at your reunion, the reunion that Luann created in 2006.
Yep, 2006.
For the Stardust, that 650 people came to. At that reunion, I kept thinking, this is over. This is
Yes.
almost over. That was 2006, and that was what, 20
And
years ago.
we never thought that those shows would ever end.
We never thought, we always thought there would be something, but it felt like an era was closing.
Yes.
And I decided to write about it. So I started writing the book then. I titled the book in 2006, The Last Real Showgirl. I actually had a different subtitle. My publisher changed it, which is fine. I like it. But I titled that because people used to say that to us. I remember Shirley Allen and I at the Stardust at the Lido having a conversation about there aren't many real showgirls left. And I used to say, what does that mean? Because choreographers used to say you're one of the last real showgirls. And she said, it's somebody who has who can dance, but has the
Yes.
personality and the charisma to entertain an audience. And the showgirls were very dynamic and very charismatic. And that's what they called a real showgirl. A lot of dancers are technicians, right?
Yes.
Amazing dancers. A lot of them are amazing technicians, but not all of them are actresses or actors. A lot of them are not real performers. Of course, most of the people that got jobs in the shows that we worked in were performers.
Yes,
they were
they were.
consummate performers.
Yes.
And there was a lot of competition, and they were coveted jobs for trained dancers, which we all were.
Right.
But to be considered one of the last real showgirls, I must have heard it 4 times
Interesting.
in my career and this is my book is not a cradle to grave story. My book is the years I spent dancing, which were 1969 to 1981. And my book opens in 1969 when I was 17 and auditioned for the Rockettes.
Wow.
At Radio City Music Hall with the original choreographer, Emily Sherman, and the creator of the Rockettes, Russell Marquardt. So a semi-private audition is unheard of these days. Now they audition 100 people at a time, and they only audition for the Christmas Spectacular.
Oh, that's
for the
right.
holiday show. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Back in 1969, Rockettes that were hired did 4 shows a day, 7 days a week.
Wow.
They did a show at 10, 3, 6, and 10.
That's worse than us. I mean, we did
Oh.
2 shows a night, 3 on Saturdays, 6 days a week. We had a day off. The Rockettes didn't have a day off.
No, they didn't even have a night off. They didn't have a day off or a night off.
Wow.
It was your whole life.
Yeah.
And times have changed, thank goodness. I have now, and sadly, they only have enough audience for the Christmas Spectacular. But I did visit New York about 8 years ago and had lunch with one of my students who was a Rockette now. And I said, how many shows do you do? And she said, we do 2 shows a day, 4 days a week.
Wow.
So, and that was before they went to just Christmas
Yeah.
Spectacular.
Yeah.
So the book opens there. And the fact that this little film came out called The Last Showgirl recently, actually my book was released for pre-order 2 days before the trailers came out for the movie. And I remember Luann calling me up and going, guess what? This was in 2023.
Yes.
You called me up and you said, somebody just called me. She knew about my book. She knew I was in the process
Yes.
of getting a literary manager. And she said, a company called The Last Showgirl is calling around Vegas looking for costumes for
and
a
locations.
low-budget movie.
Yes.
And looking for locations
Yeah.
for free because it's a low-budget film. And I respect that. And I said, what? The Last Showgirl? No. She goes, yeah, it's practically the same as your book title. Well, that was, that was a few years ago. So I had time to reconcile the similar titles. And I was talking with my literary manager, and she said, there's nothing wrong with traction. And besides, you're the real one.
That's right.
So
We
don't
are the
worry
real
about it.
ones.
You're the real one.
Yes.
So
We
I
lived it.
It took me a few years to be okay. But then my book came out first, so I was fine. And has there been some traction? Yes, there has been. And there's nothing wrong with that. But Luann and I and Barbara Beverly, went to see The Last Showgirl
Yes.
together in Santa Barbara.
Mhm.
And I had an identical reaction to the movie that Luann had. And as we discussed it after the movie over a drink, I came to the conclusion that I was having more than one reaction. I was
Yes.
having multiple reactions
Right.
to the film.
And it was, and bottom line, it was a depressing
Well,
movie.
we were very sad.
It was
When
very
we walked
sad.
out, we were very
Yes.
sad. We're like, oh my God, no.
No.
But then after I broke it down, I thought, okay, I'm looking at this movie from a writer's point of view.
Mhm.
I'm looking at this movie from an actor's point of view and an acting coach point of view,
Yes.
being those. And I'm also looking at that from a showgirl point of view.
Right.
So I then I was able to review the film from those three perspectives.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'd like to share with you today, if you're ready for the last real Showgirl review.
I would love to hear your reviews, because I know when I finally decided it's not about us. But it was an interesting take, but it wasn't about us. And that's how I was able to say, that, because we need someone that can really represent who we were and what we were and what those shows were. And
Absolutely.
nobody has yet.
And the other, idealistically, I would like to see my book become a limited series. And I would really like for it to be, and I hope you all like it enough to join me, I would like it to have a huge budget, a Ryan Murphy budget,
Yeah.
and do it right.
And if
because
anybody can do it,
showgirls deserve all the
Oh.
glitz and glam and pizzazz,
Oh, we do.
and beauty and art direction and production design, and we deserve all of that.
exactly, because we were even talking earlier that people still think of Las Vegas and showgirls.
Absolutely.
But those big stage show spectaculars are gone, and
Gone.
the showgirl needs to have the big stage show
Well, we
spectaculars
wanna
to
be
be the classic,
represented
iconic showgirl.
properly.
We want to be represented.
We want to. And so my conclusion with The Last Real Showgirl is this, and I'd like to speak to the actor in me and speak from my acting coach experience. And I have to say, I am a front runner in encouraging actors to create their own projects.
Yes.
To make movies with their phones, to do everything they can to present themselves in their best possible light, in the most creative situations, and to really go for it. So when someone comes out with a $2 million movie, I have to respect whatever they do.
Right.
And
or what they can do with
what
a $2
they can
million
do with
budget.
$2 million.
Yeah.
So I have to hand it to them
And
for
who they
what,
can get.
for what they were
able.
able to, and the PR was fantastic
Yes.
for that film. But look what they had. They had Hollywood royalty.
Yes.
They had Gia Coppola, the granddaughter of Francis Ford,
Yes.
my favorite director. And that family is known for guerrilla shooting. And guerrilla shooting is what Sophia did with the movie that was shot in Japan with Bill Murray.
Oh, I remember you talking about that.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I can't
it'll come
quite
back to
remember.
me.
I'm sure it'll bubble up.
Yes, it's Lost in Translation, I believe, right? Yeah, okay, good. It takes a team. It was the same way writing the book. It's like, hello, do you remember? But anyway, yeah, Lost in Translation was shot, Sophia Coppola went out there and shot in the streets. And that's guerrilla shooting. You carry a handheld and you go out there without permits,
Yeah.
and those are expensive. So the show was shot without permits. So I have to admire them for that.
Absolutely.
And I think we need to take a little break right now, but I'd
Yes,
like to come back
let's
and
take
talk
a
about
break.
the actors.
I would love to hear
Because,
your take on
You know, they're my
actors.
favorite people besides
Yes.
showgirls in the whole world. So
Okay.
let's come back and talk about that.
We'll be back in a minute.
Hi, my name is Edgar Alejandro. I'm the co-founder of Rising Again Productions. So we've been here in Vegas producing films for the past couple of years, and we've seen our fair share of studios. We've worked in our fair share of studios, and to be honest, WWDBTV has been our favorite by far. John is so welcoming. The space is wonderful. It's perfect for what we need. We've had rehearsals here. We've had callbacks here. We've had table reads here. So if you're a Vegas creative, or really just a creative coming into Vegas, definitely check out this space, chat with John. I think you'll find that this studio has everything that you'll need as well.
Great tasting, thirst-quenching, award-winning wines, Pine Hollow Winery. Live music, wine tastings, happy hours.
Best thing in the state is Pine Hollow Winery.
So wine in sometime, 7018 West Charleston Boulevard, Las Vegas.
So we're back with Diane Christiansen, and she started telling us about and critiquing The Last Showgirl, and now we're going to go into a little more detail about the acting.
Yeah, I would like to talk to the actor in me and in the film, and I have to say that the fact that they got, on a low budget film like that, they got Jamie Lee Curtis,
Yes.
Hollywood royalty again, and Pamela Anderson
Yeah.
was amazing. And these women are phenomenal. I mean,
Yes.
they're phenomenal. Jamie Lee has impressed me beyond measure. Not only is she an incredible talent, she's an incredible human being. She is one of the most supportive people in Hollywood of female-driven projects, and she is certainly a leader in, helping heal the whole fire devastation that we just experienced in
Right.
Los Angeles. She has been a front runner. She's just donated $1 million to the fire relief funds. I mean, a lot of people
Yes.
have donated a lot,
Yeah.
but Jamie Lee's an extraordinary human being.
And she takes risks.
Well, here's the thing I really, really agree with. She got an Oscar for Everything Everywhere All at Once, and she was such a character. I didn't even know it was her. So here's this beautiful, funny, talented leading lady, Hollywood royalty, and now she has embraced the characters that she can create. And she's so creative with them. So she got the Oscar for that. She got Best Supporting Actress for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Incredible character if you've never seen it. And then recently, I mean, she's done a lot in between, but recently she produced a wonderful little series shot mostly in Canada called The Sticky.
Oh.
And if you haven't seen The
No, I
Sticky,
haven't.
I highly recommend it. She's also in it.
Yeah.
She does a cameo. So she's incredible in it. So for her to mold and craft a character like Annette in The Last Showgirl
Yes.
was brilliant. I mean, she went raw. And you have to admire an actress
Yes.
of a certain age who is willing to be that raw and that courageous. I mean, it's courageous.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of Emma Thompson and the courageous things she's done on camera in the last 5 years. And Jamie Lee's right up there with her.
Yes.
And does she deserve, she's up for a BAFTA. Does she deserve a nod? She was up for a Golden Globe. Does
Yes,
she
she was.
deserve a nod? Absolutely. Do we know that character? I don't.
I don't.
I don't know any dancers that wound up being a lush, a gambler, homeless, and down and out. I don't know any dancers that wound up. I do know some that wound up being waitresses
Oh, right.
at the MGM and places around town.
Yeah.
They were classy jobs,
Yeah.
and they made a lot of money after their dancing days.
Yes.
But I didn't know any that were bev trainers that had to get up and dance in their 60s on a table. I don't
Yeah,
know those people.
No, I don't either.
I don't know any of those people. They may exist.
They may
There may
exist.
be dancers who
They
wound
may
up like
exist.
that, but we were pretty accomplished
Yes.
warriors to
Yes.
get those jobs.
Yeah.
A lot of people wanted those jobs. And I want to talk about Pamela Anderson because honestly, Pamela Anderson, it doesn't matter if she can act because she has so much charisma. She has so
She
much
does.
personal charisma. She carried that little movie. We watched that movie on the big screen from beginning to end because Pamela is likable and
Yes.
charming and so charismatic. And
Yes.
she is coming along in her acting. She has done better than she did on Baywatch days when she was, the blonde, sex goddess. She's come a long way and she's done a lot. And I really admire her. So I have to give kudos to those two women. And as far as the other roles, all the actors were good. Everybody was good.
Right.
They just didn't have enough meat to sink their
Yeah,
teeth into
right.
with the script.
Right.
Which takes me to the writing and to looking at it from a writer's point of view. And listen, I spent 20 years writing a book, and so many classes later, and really wanting to do it and do it right and become a writer with a voice. I have to say that the script of The Last Showgirl was the weakest link, I'm afraid. And I think
Yeah.
that the writer and I had the same thing in mind, and the same thing you have in mind. Ultimately, the goal was to preserve the showgirl. It's just that we didn't know showgirls that waited till they were 57 to figure out what they were doing next.
No.
We didn't know showgirls that were 57 that still worked in a big show. And we didn't know showgirls who had their checks cut and who had their kids sleeping in their cars. Showgirls could afford a babysitter.
When we were in the shows, you could afford to buy a home, you could go to school,
Oh,
you
yeah.
could raise your family.
That's right.
And so that
We had good
was
jobs.
not very realistic.
That wasn't realistic.
No.
And I don't,
Not ve-
I think we have to excuse the writer because the writer was just too far removed from the time of Showgirls to now to really,
Well, and we don't even know how
grasp.
long that scriptwriter had to even research.
exactly.
And
So I think they're just too far removed from the actual life and height of the Showgirl era to get enough information to know what's going on. And it's a story. It's a fictional
yeah,
story.
it's a story, but it's not a story of any of the people that we knew.
No,
and
and-
we knew a lot of people.
Oh yeah,
We
Showgirls
knew a
and
lot of
Boys
the show
were
people.
the last third of my book is all about the transitions that we made.
Oh, and the dedication and commitment it took to even get to where we were.
And we were planning our next career
Yes, we
while
were.
we were still dancing.
Yes.
We were dabbling in our future
And there were
while
so
we
many
were still
opportunities
dancers.
for us. As,
There were
like,
tons.
Right? Like you said, the modeling, acting.
Yeah,
There were
yeah.
so many opportunities outside of dancing in those shows.
Absolutely.
that
While
you
I
could-
was
And the convention work.
Oh, so much.
Yeah.
So much runway and modeling and voiceover. I did it all. I had 3 commercials running at once when I left Las Vegas. And I'd had 2 major feature films under my belt before I left.
Yes.
So
And
let me
so we had a lot of energy.
We had a lot of
You had to have
opportunity
a lot of energy to be a dancer too. So
to
they're
do
and focused
and work 6 nights a week.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and we were treated well. And the early part of my book, when I was here in 1971 at the Folies Bergère, that was an era where we were treated like celebrities. We were treated like
Yeah.
movie stars. If we wore a gown and lashes into any showroom, we didn't even need a reservation. If we went into, say, the Dunes to see a
Yes.
show and we worked at the
Or the
Tropicana,
Riviera.
they said, we're from the Tropicana. If you had 2 girls or more, they would comp you. They'd put you in the King's
Yes.
Row. You would get all free drinks. Everything was comped. They wanted showgirls to hang out.
Yeah. Well, and back in the day, everybody dressed up too.
And
So-
we had to dress up.
We had to dress up.
We were not allowed through the front door of the Stardust unless we had on a gown. And we were not allowed in the front door of any casino I worked in ever between 1969 and 1981 without dressing up. So we came through the back door with the elephants.
Yes, we did.
And their business.
They were getting ready to go on stage just
in our
like
jeans.
we were.
If we had our jeans on, we came in through the back door where the elephants were
Which that was
stored.
nice too. You know, you
Well,
don't want to dress up
some
every
of
day.
it.
Yeah.
And Siegfried and Roy's tigers and their cages. Yeah, so it was a kind of a really charming time to be here. The
And
70s were
Yeah.
really charming.
And I also felt in the Last Showgirl that
Well, we have to talk about how we felt as showgirls about the movie. We haven't addressed that yet.
that's true.
So are we ready for that? Or do we need a little break?
No, I think we have about 5 minutes.
Okay,
Yeah.
we walked out of that movie depressed because
Yes.
we didn't see ourselves. We saw our costumes. We didn't see a production. We didn't see any choreographed.
It was like they were telling
choreography.
us the story. We didn't see the story. And those big stage show spectaculars, you saw those
Everything,
shows.
yeah.
You saw those stories. And
Yeah.
so that we never really saw them on a big stage.
No,
There
we
was a
didn't get
small
to
group
see it.
backstage.
We didn't get to see what it was really like.
Or how much...
Even the dialogue. Even
Yeah.
the dialogue. There were things that we couldn't relate to it. And I think that's why dancers are disappointed in the film.
Yes.
Because we want to see ourselves represented for the accomplished, trained professionals that we were.
Agreed.
And we want to see the glitz and the glam and the choreography and the costumes. The costumes were my
Yes.
favorite part,
Oh,
besides
the Bob Mackie, Pete Menefee.
Bob Mackie and
I mean,
Pete Menefee
those
costumes are
beautiful.
gold. And we wore beautiful Falco
Yes.
costumes, the Lido.
And those costumes never left the showroom either. So if you're
Oh,
wondering,
no.
you know, who's working down on the strip, they aren't wearing
No.
the costumes that we wore. You couldn't
But
take them out of the
also-
showroom.
Also, in the film, you're wondering, why are they shooting Pamela standing next to the freeway? Why are we shooting Pamela on a rooftop? Why are we shooting her downtown next to the Showgirl statues dancing around? Because it's guerrilla. Because
Yeah.
there was no budget for locations, and locations in Las Vegas are expensive, even now.
Right.
So, again, it just didn't make any sense.
I didn't feel like it had a lot of depth. And I think we talked about that too when we walked out, that there wasn't a lot of depth.
Well, that's what I mean. It wasn't a meaty script.
Yeah.
It was a one-dimensional script. And I understand the characters that she painted for us and the story that the writer told for us.
Yes.
It's just, we were hoping so much, based on the incredible PR that we saw for the film, that we were going to see all the glitz and glam that we lived
Yeah. Yeah.
when we were here dancing.
That's right.
Or in Paris, or the Bahamas, or Puerto Rico, or Montreal, or the south of France.
Yeah, you know, and we need to bring you back on again because we're getting close to the end. We need to bring you back on again so we can really start talking about, you know, what it was like.
What we did.
What it was really like to be in those shows.
Yes.
Not,
Okay.
Right? And then
Yes.
I want you to read maybe something from your book.
Sure, sure.
So we definitely need to bring you back for.
Yeah, the release date is looking like mid-April.
Perfect.
So there will be a launch. It
Yes.
will be here.
Of course, it needs.
And
Of course,
more
it
to
will
come.
be here. Yes. Well, thank you so much, Diane.
Oh, thank you, Luann.
I'm so thrilled that you were my first guest.
Well, that's what we sisters do for each other.
That's right. And we'll talk more next week
Okay,
about what it was
Great.
really like to be a showgirl.
absolutely. I can't wait.
Okay. Thank you so much for tuning in.